30 years ago or so, right at about this time of year, I was headed out of a small town in a small car on a non-glare ice day. That is to say, the ice wasn't shiny, it wasn't evident, it was a very thin layer that was, I suppose to the educated eye it was noticeable, but my eye at that point was not educated. And I was all the way up to about 50 miles an hour, and I realized coming out of town, the car in front of me wasn't up to 50 miles. It was probably going 30 or 25, and I stepped on the brakes to no avail, and I saw that bumper get bigger and bigger and bigger. It looked 20 feet wide by the time I got close to it. And I thought, I'm going to hit this car. Well, somehow I had a thought. The brakes weren't working, so I said a little prayer and I decided I'm going to go around this car. I was able to turn into the lane to pass, and then I saw another car was coming. When I got out there far enough, I thought, this isn't good. Turned back in. I had a third thought, let's go for the shoulder on the other side and scrub off speed. The shoulder was icy too. Didn't scrub off any speed. Well, I scrubbed off, in all of this, I maybe got down to 45, and this other car was still up there, and it was all happening fast, very fast. And I didn't really have a thought other than to turn the wheel again and keep pumping on the brake. And in the midst of that, I realized when I was doing about 45, I was doing it sideways. And then I was doing it backwards. And I looked over my hood, and there went the car from the oncoming lane, and it just crossed, and I went behind it backwards, and missed the car in front of me somehow, and went into the ditch, wrapped around a pole. At least that's what the record person said. At least that's what the track said. He got out, well, I got out, and he said, you hit that pole. You just wrapped right around it. And we walked. I said, I don't think I did. He said, you hit it, the pole. And we walked over there, and there was the car about an inch from the pole, but the tracks wrapped around the pole. And there I was perched. I was able to contact my dad about 20 minutes later after all of that. It was just out of town. The wrecker was there quickly. He already knew. The bus driver down the road picking up kids from school had seen it, passed on the word. Another person had seen it, passed on the word. My car happened to be yellow. People knew there weren't that many yellow cars. That's your son. So he already knew what happened. Except he thought that I had wrapped around the pole too and hit it. Now, I want to be careful with what I say here, because I don't think God is this magic octopus up in the sky with tentacles reaching down and moving cars around in the midst of icy incidents. But I think sometimes God can influence our instincts, and if there's very few cars, maybe help us come out safe by helping us do the right thing when we don't know what the right thing is. Had there been another car or two, it wouldn't have been like that at all, I'm sure of that. But that moment in time changed my driving. And it left me with a strong, strong dislike for going backwards in a car, especially if I'm not driving. But even if I am driving, you can ask my kids about how it is when I back down boat ramps, how it is when they're backing down a street, or whatever it is. I just don't like it. And 30 years later, there are times if when life is spinning out of control, or things really get difficult and are stressing me, it's not a surprise to have a dream where I'm back in that car. And I'm stepping on the brake to no avail, and I'm hurtling backwards, and usually a hill is added in my dreams now, and the back window is covered with ice, so I don't have a clue where I'm going. I'm just going where I can't see. Today, we read of the voice of one crying in the wilderness. A bold character, John the Baptist, as one paraphrase puts it, this was the guts of his message. Turn your lives around, for the realm of heaven has drawn near. Turn your lives around, and we say that as if it were easy. But the truth is, We start to turn our lives around, but we have momentum in our lives. And we can get ourselves facing the direction we need to face, but still be hurtling the wrong direction, looking the direction we wish we were going, and we intend to go. The paraphrase goes on to say, there were those who owned up to their wrongdoing and promised to mend their ways, but there's one coming who will release uncontrollable fire in the dry bushland of our lives, completely incinerating the rubbish and germinating the good seeds. Health and wholeness and healing in the deepest level of our bodies and souls begins with taking some of the trash out of our lives and burning it. Health and healing and wholeness begins with making the most out of every close call in life and learning from it. Health and healing and wholeness begins with risking making changes, even when we don't know where we'll end up, especially when we don't know where we'll end up. Precisely when we don't know where we'll end up. Because then we're forced to trust that God will lead us to the place that we need to be. And frankly, landing in a ditch uninjured is a small thing, a small lesson. The big lessons are when the injuries and the losses do happen. The tough lessons are changing daily behaviors because you've heard the word cancer spoken into your life, and are now praying radiation will burn away the rubbish growing inside. The tough challenges include losing a dear person who was so much a part of your life, that facing the daily changes that come with it, that come without having your loved one near, and not knowing when the waves of grief will subside, are your biggest challenge. And yet, people go on believing that somehow God will bring healing. And eventually, God does. The tough growing edges are discovering that we have limits, and discovering that we can't do things on our own, and discovering that there are others out there who help us on our journey, who stand beside us in our struggles, who get in that hurtling backwards car, pointing the right way with us, and ride it out with us. And then we discover the art of being with others in their struggle, and being with them as they turn their lives around. The tough personal transformations entail finding ways to keep on keeping on in the midst of the struggles, believing that the most crucial and life-giving changes any of us can make begin with finding ways of being kind, and finding ways of encouraging others, and finding ways of being with others in their toughest trials of life. Pave, says John the Baptist, where is your life calling you to make change? Not knowing how it will all turn out, but knowing God will be there in the midst of the turning around. Where is God calling you to gently remind another that God will take care of them in the midst of their struggle? Maybe sharing your story of how God has taken care of you in the midst of your struggle.